business succeed.
Sunday and Monday on CNN Newsstand. For more than a year, she has hidden from television cameras. Now, a CNN and Time exclusive, A Day with Monica.
The number one in the U.S., the number one in the U.K.
All those people who are reading about my embarrassing life.
Behind the scenes with Monica Lewinsky as she travels Great Britain to promote her tell-all book. A CNN and Time exclusive, Sunday and Monday, 10, 9 Central on CNN.
There are, we believe, more than one person out there who has information about what happened to them.
To me, the worst thing that could happen is to never know. This at least will lead to some resolution.
Welcome back. The FBI says they believe there are people out there with information. Those sources could lead to suspects, which the FBI needs to solve the case. Vicki, let me go back to you. After not meeting his wife in the airport, what did Yen, the husband, do?
He took the 3 children and flew on to Phoenix, Arizona, where he was staying with his sister. Then the next morning, which would have been the morning of the 17th, Jens went out and played a round of golf. Now, at that point, of course, he didn't realize that his wife was missing. When he came back, he asked his sister if she had called. She said no. He started calling around to some of her friends who said that they had not shown up for a 2 p.m. appointment at the University of Pacific in Stockton, where their daughter Julie was supposed to tour the music department. At that point, Jens called his father and mother-in-law, and the mother-in-law tells me that he was a little panicky on the phone at that point.
You know, Vicki, everyone sort of looks through these facts, through his or her own eyes. I mean, was this unusual that she didn't show up at the airport, or is this sort of typical conduct so that it was reasonable for him to think that perhaps that their plans had just gotten mixed up?
It's interesting because Jens says unusual for his wife, but he was late, but not unusual for him because he says she's the organizer. He's more or less more scattered in his thinking, and he just assumed that he was wrong, that he had gotten things wrong, and especially when he called his sister and she said, well, I don't think you were due in here until Wednesday.
Bill, oh, I'm sorry, Vicki. Bill, in terms of you're the FBI, in terms of trying to find this killer, I mean, how do you differentiate? Is this a serial killer? Is this a random killing? And perhaps even a familial killing? How would the FBI go about investigating those prospects?
You take everything in the case and start looking at the logical conclusions and follow every track. Unfortunately, there are over 1,000 serial killings that are being examined by law enforcement now, a lot more than people realize.
All right, from what you've heard, Bill, and your experience in this area, what would you think? What conclusions would you be drawing?
I don't have one yet.
You need more information.
Let me go back to Vicki in this investigation. Vicki, has anyone been polygraphed? Not that polygraphs are necessarily the linchpin of any investigation, but has anyone been polygraphed? Has anyone passed or flunked?
As far as we know right now, we know that at least 3 family members were polygraphed, and that includes Jens. According to sources that we have, they supposedly passed those polygraphs. Of course, the FBI won't confirm that, and nor will they say that there are any suspects named anywhere. They say that this is something that they always do to eliminate possibilities.
Bill, is time an enemy in solving this crime?
Absolutely.
And because what are the chances as each day goes by? Do they diminish, or?
It's always, the first 48 hours are critical. That's passed. So now it's a matter of intense, detailed investigation and information sharing.
You know what I thought was sort of interesting, maybe Vicki can help me out on this, is that a short time after it was reported that these 3 people were missing, there came a time when the family announced that they had gotten some news from the FBI that they suspected a violent death, but that they weren't releasing the information that caused them to advise the family. Do you know anything about that, Vicki?
Yeah, we do know that at the time the FBI was finally saying, I think it was towards the end of February, the first part of March, that they had eliminated enough scenarios to believe at this point that there was a violent crime committed. And they were also telling the family that it was very unlikely that the 3 women were alive. And I think that was devastating to them. And I think while they are outwardly trying to portray hope, I feel that you can see in their eyes that it's become more doubtful for them.
All right, let's take a break. What else can the Sun and Peloso families do to find out what happened to their loved ones? Stay with us.
tonight on CNN. At 6:30, the Moneyline News Hour with Lou Dobbs brings you the latest news. Then, in the Crossfire, Bill Press and Robert Novak debate the issues of the day. At 8, it's The World Today. At 9, Larry King Live. The King of Talk interviews top newsmakers. Then at 10, CNN's landmark documentary series, Cold War. Spies and the stories that were never supposed to be told. That's all tonight on CNN.
Tonight on Larry King Live, the president's first solo press conference in a year. Dee Dee Myers, Marlon Fitzwater, and more tonight, 9 Eastern on CNN.
At Bank of the West, we've been here in the West for 125 years. But there are still some people who don't bank with us. So we've decided to hold a special promotion. If you don't have a Bank of the West checking account and you open one before May 1st, we'll give you free checking for the next 125 years. It's a little strange, but you have to admit, it's a heck of a good deal. So come into Bank of the West and get free checking till the year 2124. After that, draw on your own.
Porcupines are delicious, a rare delicacy, and the lions know it. But their razor-sharp quills can inflict serious damage.
Step away from the chair. Step away from the chair. You have the right to remain silent.
Not your lucky day? It could be. Spirit Mountain, poker, bingo, craps, slots, and the like.
Fear of long-term relationships? The Accord will make you hyperventilate. The 99 Accord. It lasts a long, long time.
Lease a 99 Accord LX at the very special price of $219 a month for 36 months.
Among the vast array of transportation options, some of the greatest can be found here. The Chrysler and Plymouth minivans. From the luxurious Chrysler Town & Country to Voyager, America's lowest priced minivan with air and room for 7. We've got America's largest choice of minivans. Chrysler, we made the minivan what it is today. Now get $1,000 cash allowance or 1.9% APR on any Chrysler minivan.
It's tonight with Fred and Vince, 11 Eastern on CNN.
I'm Natalie Allen. A tense day because of Kosovo. The president meets with concerned Senate leaders, and the U.S. Embassy in Belgrade is being evacuated. The Serb-Albanian talks have collapsed. The Pentagon considers how best to take on sophisticated Serbian air defenses. Lou Waters joins me for this story and much more on CNN Today after Burden of Proof.
Welcome back. Before the rented Pontiac was found in the woods, the family had offered a $50,000 reward to anyone who could find it. Is there anything else the families of the missing can do? Paul Cialino, suppose you were contacted by the family and asked to assist in the finding of their family. What would you do? How would you assist?
Well, Roger, I think the FBI is really doing a great job in this case, as is all the local people. So all you could do is be the conduit between the family and them and offer any assistance you can and any help. Frankly, so much time has passed, and we're talking about such a remote area. I think there's very little hope of finding these people at this time.
Well, you say, Paul, that the FBI has done a great job. I mean, let's face it, man, they may be really trying hard to get it solved. I'm sure they want to solve it, but, you know, the truth is we've got 3 missing people. It's not solved. So, I mean, how can you say they're doing a great job?
I think they've thrown just every resource they have into this thing, I would guess. Airplanes, helicopters, infrared, just all the technology that's available to them, and they're doing the best they can. I really believe that.
Paul, who would you be talking to? If you were called up there to start doing some investigating, who would you want to talk to?
I want to talk to anyone who had contact with these people. I'd talk to everybody that was in that restaurant, and I'm sure that's been done. At least I hope it's been done. You have to backtrace them and see who they talked to, where they spent money, who could have seen them, was there video taken in convenience stores, etc. Were they under duress? Does the ATM machine have a camera there that you can review the tapes? I'm sure this has all been done. At least I hope it has.
You know, Paul, apparently the husband has passed a polygraph. The next day he was seen playing golf. I think the night before he was seen by the in-laws. So it sounds like that usually the focus is on the family. Would you be focusing more now on sort of a stranger type attacker?
Absolutely. I think this is a stranger abduction or a serial killer out there. These people, they would have found these bodies if they were in that area. These bodies are extremely well concealed. They're probably concealed in water if they've been disposed of. Because otherwise, I think the FBI or the technology would have picked them up if they were in that general area.
All right, well, that's all the time we have today. Thanks to our guests, and thank you for watching.
We'll be back Monday with the latest on the Susan McDougal trial in Little Rock. We'll see you then.
The rush to get out. The Kosovo peace talks break down, and a civil war gets international military attention.
In Russia, in a crowded market packed with shoppers buying food for the weekend, a bomb, at least 53 dead.
And in the United States, the search for 3 women who vanished from Yosemite Park. Today a bad sign. Their rental car, charred and abandoned. And it's 1 p.m. on the East Coast, 10 a.m. in Seattle, Washington. This is Friday, March 19th.
From CNN Center in Atlanta, this is CNN Today. And hello, I'm Natalie Allen.
I'm Lou Waters. Hello, here's what's happening. The repercussions of Serbia's refusal to sign a peace agreement with Kosovo. Albanians are being felt today from Belgrade to Washington. In the Yugoslav capital, non-essential workers and family members began pulling out of the United States Embassy, fearing NATO airstrikes may not be far off. Officials say even the essential workers will leave within 48 hours, barring some unforeseen easing of tensions. Other Western nations are taking similar measures, and European observers in Kosovo, some 1,400 people, will pull out tomorrow. Serbia's president pulled out of the Paris peace talks today, a day after Kosovars signed a self-rule agreement by themselves. The Serbs call that document a fake and accuse international mediators of, in their words, deceit and manipulation. The mediators admit the talks have collapsed and say they will not resume unless and until the Serbs have a change of heart. At the White House today, President Clinton sought to convince some skeptical members of Congress that ending the Kosovo crisis is worth risking American lives. CNN White House correspondent John King with more on that now. John?
Lou, the president and his national security team spent more than an hour with some 30 members of the U.S. Congress, a split delegation, House leaders and Senate leaders on hand. The president had a very tough sell, explaining to them the U.S. national interest in participating in these planned NATO airstrikes against the forces of Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic. One significant development, the Senate Majority Leader Trent Lott saying that for now, the Senate will put off plans to debate a resolution on whether that would be an appropriate use of U.S. forces. The president had said that would send the wrong signal to Mr. Milosevic, suggesting that there was not support for the president here in the United States. Still, Senator Lott told reporters the president needs to do a much better job explaining to the Congress and the American people just what is the long-term U.S. policy in the Balkans.
We're now talking about a very different set of dynamics. We're talking about a peace agreement not being reached, the Serbians not having signed up, and a military action involving airstrikes against sites, which perhaps I should not even discuss here. And so it came somewhat as, I think, an alarming recognition on Thursday in the Senate that we're now going into a very different destabilized situation potentially with a military action required, and that we needed to make sure we understood that and thought it through.
The Senate Democratic leader Tom Daschle emerged from the meeting. He said he thought the president had made a compelling case for U.S. and NATO action against Mr. Milosevic. Still, he said the president should make a more detailed explanation to the American people, something the president will do at the opening this afternoon of his press conference.
I'm hopeful that we can resolve this matter peacefully. But if we can't, I do believe that it's important for the president to articulate our objectives and our course of action. And in the end, I believe the American people and the Congress will support him.
And even Republican critics of using U.S. pilots in airstrikes against the Yugoslav forces said they would quickly support the president and the use of NATO and U.S. forces against Serbian troops if Mr. Milosevic ordered any sort of a new offensive against the ethnic Albanians in Kosovo. Lou?
John King at the White House, and John mentioned the news conference, which will begin with a more detailed explanation of what's happening now in Kosovo. And CNN's coverage of that formal news conference begins at 3:45 Eastern, 12:45 Pacific today.
NATO Supreme Commander in Europe says his forces are ready to hit Serbian targets despite Serbia's apparent determination to hit back. CNN military affairs correspondent Jamie McIntyre following this part of the story for us. Jamie, what could NATO troops be up against?
Well, Natalie, just a short time ago, the U.S. Defense Secretary William Cohen signed orders to send 5 more warplanes to the region. 5 radar-jamming EA-6B Prowler jets will be moving from Whidbey Island, Washington, over to the region. But the U.S. says it already has the forces in place to take to carry out these NATO strikes. And the Supreme NATO Commander, General Wes Clark, told CNN earlier this morning that he is ready as soon as the order is given.
From the perspective of NATO, we've done our planning and our homework very well. We've got our forces and capabilities ready, and if called on, we'll be capable of doing the job.
NATO already has some 350 to 400 aircraft standing by at the forward bases in Europe. That includes U.S. F-117 stealth fighters, which can evade radars, and also B-52 bombers in England with air-launched cruise missiles. That in addition to 7 ships with cruise missiles in the Adriatic, including 1 British ship that has cruise missiles for the first time, a British submarine that would take part in the initial strikes if they're carried out. Now, pilots at the Aviano Air Base in Italy have been practicing for this scenario for quite some time, but still, the Pentagon is very concerned about the kind of air defenses these pilots would have to face. Unlike Iraq, where targets are out in the middle of the desert, here, mobile missile systems are in rugged terrain, in valleys where it's shrouded with fog and snow cover. A very difficult situation for U.S. pilots, particularly trying to use laser-guided weapons in an area where there's cloud cover and fog. That's a very difficult thing to do, so the U.S. will be relying, initially at least, on cruise missiles that are guided by satellites and unaffected by the weather. Natalie?
Because if warplanes go in, then what you're saying is this could be a really difficult mission for them.
Exactly. Now, the kinds of targets that these planes would be going after would be the Pentagon obviously won't release exact targets, but they're saying that the kinds of things they would be targeting would be things that would affect Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic's ability to carry out his war against his own people, the Kosovar Albanians. So there would be targets such as military barracks, troop concentrations, command and control headquarters, and of course the primary target initially would be those air defenses that would threaten the NATO planes.
Jamie McIntyre following that part of the story from the Pentagon. Thanks, Jamie. Lest we forget, observers and diplomats aren't the only ones leaving Yugoslavia. Ethnic Albanians, though a majority in Kosovo, are getting fewer there by the hour. Fearing a Serbian onslaught, they continue to trudge toward the Macedonian border, pausing only at way stations set up by relief workers. That's where CNN found this baby girl born just hours earlier. It is estimated 80,000 Kosovo Albanians now are refugees.
A long impasse with Libya may be over. South African President Nelson Mandela has been meeting with the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. Mandela says Gaddafi will turn 2 alleged terrorists over to the United Nations by April 6th. Those suspects are accused of conspiracy in the bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland in 1988. 270 people lost their lives in that disaster. Last year, Libya agreed to let those 2 suspects go on trial in the Netherlands under Scottish law, but there was a continuing dispute over whether those men would be imprisoned if convicted. According to Mandela, Libya now has agreed to imprisonment in Scotland under UN supervision. U.S. and British officials say they're pleased with Mandela's announcement, but again, they're waiting to see whether Gaddafi does in fact comply.
A bomb that exploded at a crowded outdoor market in Russia today has killed at least 53 people. The blast took place in southern Russia in a region divided by ethnic hatred. CNN's Jill Doherty has the story.
The powerful bomb ripped through the central marketplace in Vladikavkaz, near a stall selling potatoes. It was noon, the market was packed with Friday shoppers, and within seconds there was chaos. Victims torn apart by the blast. President Boris Yeltsin ordered his interior minister to the city to personally head up an investigation. Vladikavkaz is the capital of North Ossetia, a region in Russia's volatile Caucasus area, torn by violence since the Soviet Union fell apart 8 years ago. Its sad distinction, site of the first major ethnic war in the newly constituted Russian Federation. The region still is awash with thousands of refugees from ethnic fighting between 2 groups, the Ossetians and the Ingush. Although North Ossetia is geographically close to the breakaway region of Chechnya, this is not an area torn over separatism. The fight is about land, fertile land, in an area where resources are scarce. Russia has dragged its heels in settling the problem, and it has festered.
We are facing the crisis of power in Russia in general. We are facing the crisis of federalism. We are facing the crisis of ethno-territorial principle of the state building.
As rescuers remove the dead in Vladikavkaz, investigators look for reasons for the attack. An end to the violence, regional experts say, could be years away. For that, you need economic means, they say, and political will, something Russia has little of these days. Jill Doherty, CNN, Moscow.
A burned-out rental car has been found 3 hours from Yosemite National Park. The FBI has linked that car to 3 sightseers, Carol Sund, her 15-year-old daughter, and a 16-year-old friend who vanished from Yosemite weeks ago. No bodies ever were found. The FBI says the 3 most likely were victims of a kidnapping or carjacking.
An eyewitness reportedly has given conflicting accounts of the Amtrak train wreck. Published reports indicate one account jibes with the train engineer's story, that the semi drove around the crossing gates into the train's path. Another report says the witness also backs up the truck driver's story that the gates were up and lights not flashing. 11 passengers were killed when the train hit the truck and derailed. Between January and October last year, almost 400 people died in crashes at railroad crossings. One couple who lost a son in one of those is putting their grief and money won in a lawsuit to good use. Here's CNN's Ed Garston.
A car full of kids in a speeding train. This is all that was left of the car after the 2 collided 3 years ago. This and grieving parents.
The train hit the center of the car, and all 3 kids in the back seat were killed, including our youngest son, Ryan.
Vicki and Dennis Moore say Ryan and his 2 friends died because there were no warning lights, bells, or gates at the crossing.
There's no doubt in my mind the accident would never have happened that day had there been gates and lights.
Soon after the accident, the brush was cut and gates and lights installed. But the Moores sued Conrail and won. A jury awarded the Moores $7 million. For the $5.4 million they were left with after paying their attorneys, the family didn't go out and buy a bigger house or a fancy car. They created the Angels on Track Foundation. The foundation helps cut through bureaucratic red tape for funding to install safety devices at crossings and chips in as much as $40,000 of the $150,000 it costs on one condition.
You establish a task force whose only purpose is to identify and locally prioritize all the dangerous crossings in your county.
Cash-starved Carroll County, Ohio, took the Moores up on their offer. But both the Moores and the Carroll County engineers say it should not be the taxpayer's job to pay for safety devices at railroad crossings.
I feel it's entirely the railroad's responsibility.
Conrail told CNN the burden should be on the communities using the road, saying it's like installing a traffic light in front of a busy grocery store. And the company said it spends $20 million a year to maintain and inspect crossings and safety devices. Well, the Angels of the Track Foundation has made 3 grants for safety upgrades thus far and will continue to do so as long as the money holds. The Moores say it's something they simply must do with money they wish they never had.
We just don't want another family to have to go through what we did.
Ed Garston, CNN, Canal Fulton, Ohio.
And just ahead,